And we're back.
We're back.
Welcome to another week, another 2 weeks of the podcast that still does not have a name. We definitely got to work on that.
Yeah.
Open to any suggestions, by the way, from anyone in the audience.
That's how people know us. We're the Nameless Podcast.
Could go with that too. That might be good. So let's hop right in. Last week we talked about PBMs. We talked about different marketing or different partnerships that we were working on, especially with our PBM and our back end. Today we want to focus a little bit more on our marketing efforts and what we've been doing, sort of what we did in the very beginning, and then how we've transitioned since that time into our marketing efforts that are being put in today. So I'm going to open it up first to Nate. I wanted to ask you, take us through the sort of thought process and everything you've had from when you came on board in terms of marketing to what you've been leveraging and kind of where you stand today in terms of our position.
Yeah, for sure. So when I first came on board last year, back in I would say end of May, we were still pretty heavy in our development process. A lot of our goals at the time were just making sure functionality was up to par, making sure that we had all the pages that we need, with the goal in mind of leveraging SEO as one of our primary marketing channels. Now, the goal behind that was one, we wanted to build up a good base of organic users. That way, when we continue to grow our numbers, we know that these users are going to keep coming back. We know these aren't users that are paid for, so we're not burning a lot of money out of pocket right away. And at the end of the day, organic users are free. Plus, it takes a long time to rank for high quality content, especially as a new website. So the sooner you get that stuff up, the better off you'll be in the long run. So, with that in mind, we dedicated quite a lot of time to the idea of making our drug product pages kind of a one stop shop for users that already have purchase intent or high buying intent. And the idea behind that is that if we can bring most of the targeted traffic to that page, then we'll have a higher conversion rate overall. So, together we designed more or less a structural outline for all the product pages where we could fill in information specific to each drug, but still stick within the same framework between each page just to make it easier for mass implementation. So basically, with all that big words and too long didn't read, we put a lot of content on our product pages to rank high for them. So with that in mind, that's kind of where we started. We're finally wrapping up. We have about 3,500 total drugs, so 3,500 total drug product pages. As you guys can imagine, that's quite a lift. I was definitely lucky that you guys were able to help publish a lot of these, so that way we could stick within the right time frame. But with that being done, moving forward with SEO, I know we're looking to continue to build out some disease states in more or less like a hub and spoke structure, start to continue to monitor our organic traffic and our keywords a little bit better and continue growing from there. Other than that, we have tapped into PPC a little bit in the beginning, mostly branded campaigns. So what that means is people who are already searching for Meowdy, not only are they going to get an organic result, but they'll get an ad at the top too, which should enhance click-through rate, and therefore just make our target audience find us a little bit easier at the end of the day. So with a campaign like that, it keeps it low cost, perfect for a startup. As well as you guys know, we've started testing some Reddit campaigns. We've had some really great results. I think once we get the conversion rate up there, we'll really start to see some serious ROI. But yeah, I think SEO is definitely 1A in terms of priority for leveraging our marketing efforts. And then we tapped a little bit more into organic, social, and PPC as priorities to A and B. So spread out, but mostly focusing on the organic side of things for now.
Nice. Yeah, I think organic search and getting all these product pages out, it definitely was a big lift, but it puts a lot of directed content because I know, at least for myself, if I'm looking for a specific medication or something online, I'm not going to go through the entire flow of a certain website to find info on that medication. I'm just going to search, in Google, whatever drug I'm looking for and either lowest price or side effects or how does this work or something like that. So having those things tie into our SEO efforts, I think is really important. And I think we've been able to execute a lot of that information on our product pages to get more traffic to our site, to get more people aware. of what
Yeah,
Meowdy's all
yeah, and I
about.
mean, I think really, like we said, the goal there is, you want to make it a one stop shop. We don't want visitors having to leave one page to go to another to convert. We don't want to have to. We don't want them to have to jump through 4 or 5 hoops to get to what they're looking for. And the more we can rank for keywords that are relevant to that page, that are relevant to our users, more people that'll be there, and hopefully the more conversions there'll be. But yeah, like you said, definitely a big lift, and much kudos to you guys for helping out with that.
When you first took a look at Meowdy and you realized like there's this huge SEO play to be had here, did you feel like you underestimated or overestimated the amount of work needed to go into this?
Yeah, no, definitely underestimated. I think at the end of the day, I was pretty confident in my ability to go in and edit all these pages in a reasonable amount of time, as well as then get to publishing. Especially, I let you guys know, I brought in 2 people I know to kind of help out. And at the end of the day, because I was doing a lot too, I didn't really monitor them that well, and they just didn't do a good job. So I have to redo that work. So I definitely underestimated the amount of time it would take. Yeah, but 3,500 when it's going to be done, it's going to feel amazing. I know that much.
Yeah.
So, for other startups that are listening out there, if they had a big SEO push, say they are into, I don't know, the travel industry for whatever reason, and they have so many different locations people can go visit, and they have to create content behind that. Would you recommend that still a good strategy for them to pursue as a startup? To, focus on SEO in the very beginning.
For a situation such as that, I think programmatic SEO would probably be the best place to build a base where they can scrape/download a large amount of content based on these locations and kind of publish that to get a good base going. What'll really separate them out in that scenario would be editing that content to make sure they have as relevant keywords as possible. And especially with location targeting these days, it's tough. So you want to make sure you include any landmarks nearby, street names. Just really try to build up the entity of that location on that page. I think it'd be a good base to start, but just based on the travel industry overall, I know a lot of them are based on, if not the place, it's going to be the price. So I imagine that's probably a PPC or like an ad heavy industry to be in as well. Just almost like an e-commerce brand of sorts,
Sure.
showing thousands of listings for you to buy, or I guess service for you to buy. But
In your experience, do you see that a lot of people are searching for things that are very specific, or is it just a kind of a broad search that people have and then they go through all the pages to kind of find what they want?
yeah, and that's a good question. I think you will have people that do broad searches, and now I will say it is my belief, and it's probably proven somewhere, although I do not have a citation right now, that all the keyword estimation tools, Ahrefs, Moz, SEMrush, they all grossly overestimate volume there. So I feel like when you look at keywords for these broad topics, if someone's searching Adderall, a billion results are going to come up. WebMD is going to come up. Wikipedia is going to come up. And I think they get overcounted. I don't think people search them nearly as much as they say they are in those tools. And so, I mean, that's kind of answer 1A. 1B is overall, the people that are searching the more specific questions, more specific topics, which is what my belief most people do that, especially these days, There's just too many topics out there that you can't just type one thing in and expect to find it unless it's a big brand name. But those are the people you want to target, right? Because those are the people that you can identify. And when you're doing your research, you're looking at these. One big part of this is frequently asked questions. These are longer tailed keywords, much more customized to the person searching it, which means much more customized to your audience, the people that are looking for you. And these people tend to be much higher converting. Maybe converting is the wrong word, but at least click through rate. These searches will result in a much higher click through rate because you're able to target such specific searches with all the long tail keywords. So yeah, I would say more people are searching more specifically. And then honestly, as a company, that's really what you want to look for. You want to look for those longer searches that are more specific.
I guess I'll ask both of you guys. Whenever you guys have a question, do you guys tend to type out the entire question? that you're searching for? I mean, this is like maybe pre-GPT times, but do you guys search out the entire question? Do you just search keywords that you're looking for to get, a myriad of answers?
I actually just talked to my phone.
That's another big thing coming up. Yeah, which should result in even longer searches, right? So
Yeah.
like we're getting even more customizable, more personable. Yeah, and to answer your question, I search. I guess you could say keywords, but I just take like filler words out of it. Like instead of what time is the Eagles game? Eagles game time,
Yeah.
like stuff like that. So just take the fluff out of it.
I wonder if that yields better results or if it yields more generalized pages. Pretty should be more generalized. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. You know what? I haven't done a study or anything. That'd be a good thing to actually monitor. I feel satisfied though. I guess Google's algorithm is read me pretty clean.
Yeah, maybe I'll try talking to my phone, see if that yields better results.
Yeah, yeah. That's been a big thing in the SEO world over the past couple of years. Is how do you start to prepare for more voice searches? Especially you have the Alexa, the Google Nest, I think it's called. Um, all these voice search options, Siri, your Android, everything. So yeah, I know that's been something that's been much more on the rise and something that, in terms of SEO, you really have to drill down into your target audience to know exactly what they're searching for. So
All right. Should we segue into our go to market?
yeah, let's do it.
All right. I'll
Well,
let you
first of all,
guys.
for our listeners, what is a go-to-market plan? What is it, and why is it so important?
Yeah, so good question. A go to market plan is overall a strategy for your startup or your company to take the next steps into developing into an operating firm. So it involves researching your target audiences, researching, your ideal customer profiles. It involves setting up your goals. It involves describing strategy for different marketing channels, which ones you want to leverage, which ones you want to utilize, which ones you don't want to utilize, because again, as a startup, cash is always tight. So some of the better calls are understanding what not to put money in versus, what to put money in. But just an overall strategy basically for starting your company. Yeah, yeah. So we can go into the one that I put together here back in December of 2023. This was something that we had just really started putting together our drug product pages. We just got to the end, or I should say, three-quarters to the end of our development requirements here for the site. And we started off with the target audience. James, if I share my screen,
You should be able to. Are you able to?
let me see. Yeah, I should be able to. Awesome. So yeah, we started off first looking at our target audience and doing some research into understanding who would be interested in our product, and especially what messaging would start to resonate with them. So overall, we know Medicare is not something that we wanted to work with in the beginning. Just too many hoops to jump through, too many headaches. So we really wanted to limit the age to about 64, and then as well as most people under 25 are not really picking up. If they have prescriptions, they're probably not the one picking it up. So we kept it in that age range with the gender ratio of females being 1A versus males 1B, based off a study that I forget where we saw it at, but that women tend to be picking up prescriptions at the pharmacy more than males. Um, so yeah, it kind of started there, education level, high school level and up, income range about 35 plus a year. Really a wide net in the beginning, so that way we could break it down more into our ICPs later on here. So we talked about pain points, and then we talked about their decision making process. So problem recognition. I need a prescription. I don't have insurance. Really, what this exercise let us do is it allowed us to start thinking like our customers and putting ourselves in their shoes to see, okay, at each stage of this process, What are the emotions they're feeling? What are they thinking? What are the problems that they need solved? So we went through in the beginning, I need a prescription. I don't have insurance, or maybe you have insurance, but you're shopping. Next, you need to find the information. What are the main questions are going to be? Question number one is probably going to be, where can I get it? Question two is definitely going to be, how much is this going to cost me? And then kind of moving on through that, evaluating alternatives, what's the purchase decision, and just, again, getting in the mind of the customer here, starting to understand how they think in terms of converting with us. The one thing I wanted to touch on this initial one was definitely the buyer personas down here. This is something that we put together initially that I think most of the audience listening here will see how they've changed in about 5 to 10 minutes when we go over our more recent go-to-market plan. But we started off here putting together 4 different buyer personas. And to us, this is what our ideal customers would look like. And we identified about 4 different types. So buyer persona one was a tech savvy millennial, young, making decent money, about 60,000 a year as a freelance web designer. And we kind of put this together as, this is a guy who is very tech savvy. He's very knowledgeable about technology. He's caught up on the news and that kind of industry there. And with that in mind, people of this sort also tend to be a little bit more involved with fintech. So the idea is that he's following stocks, he's monitoring things. His work, being at home all the time, freelance web designer, could lead to health issues if not kind of maintained at the time. And so they're drawn to the idea of getting their prescription one, mostly because they get the rebate in Bitcoin. Again, a technologically savvy millennial, something that they know of, they're aware of, and that they see it as a way to both invest but also save on their medication costs, being at that middle income here. Buyer persona two, we thought more now of a single parent, somebody a little bit more familial, somebody that's definitely a provider in their family. A little bit older, age 38. We described her as a retail manager, a little under, what's his name, Alex's income over here. We had her at 45 a year. So right now, really the story there is that she works at retail. She has 2 kids she has to support, not covered by an insurance plan based off of the job that she has. And she's really looking for, 1, ways to save money, and 2, ways to invest. Not for her, but for her children. And so she sees Meowdy as an opportunity to, do both, ease stress, ease prescription troubles, as well as possibly get growing assets that her children can receive or that she can use eventually. The last 2, I'll kind of paraphrase because I don't want to take up all the time here. But, another one, kind of semi-young, 31, marketing specialist, a little bit higher income. In this aspect, because he's so young, he doesn't have health insurance. He prefers to pay out-of-pocket costs when needed. And the way that he sees Meowdy is that it's a way to combine his interest in cryptocurrencies, being that younger generation, as well as a practical method to save on prescription costs. And then finally, the health-conscious entrepreneur, older, around 46. We have him as a wellness coach, income around 90K a year. She's a wellness coach, small business owner. She doesn't know a lot about cryptocurrency, but she does recognize it as an asset that can increase in value. And while she actually doesn't have insurance due to her job, especially as a small business owner, she's kind of responsible for that. This is a way that, because she's in good shape, because she's healthy, she can kind of pay out of pocket, and she can use the prescription rebate program to save money. And again, that overarching value prop, grow your assets over time. So that was, I think, probably the most useful activity/exercise we did, was between these 2, doing the target audience research and definitely researching the buyer personas. We go a little bit more initially into what our goals are, which I think in the beginning here we laid them out a little bit broader. And definitely what we'll touch on next here is showing our new go-to-market plan, and kind of also discuss how we set a little bit more granular goals for ourselves, and the value of celebrating small wins there.
So for other startup founders that are tuning in and listening, one thing that was very beneficial for us was developing the ideal customer profile. But what's like the crux of doing that the main reasoning as to why it's so important and valuable to develop your ideal customer versus doing a general marketing plan and go to market plan.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Really, the value there is my belief in marketing is that it all starts with one thing, and that is research. You have to research to know who you're targeting. You have to research to know the language you need to use. You have to know where they are. You have to know as much as you possibly can about them. And the reason being, one, as a startup, startups are strapped for cash until they get investors, right? So you can't be burning money out there on people that don't, give a shit about your products. And two, once you can determine what the end, or I should say, what the user looks like, you can start to work the process from beginning to end. And what that process looks like is once you can identify your ICPs, which are also always subject to change the more you get to understand your audience, you can then determine, okay, well, how am I going to reach these people? Are they on Instagram? Are they on TikTok? Are they looking at the Bitcoin magazine? Are they reading publications online? Where do they spend their time? Where can we get in front of them? And then once you can understand that, you can start to understand, okay, what messaging resonates with them. We talked about Sarah, the health conscious entrepreneur. Things that show wellness, things that talk about being wealthy, healthy, whether it's finances, whether it's your body, that's the stuff that's going to resonate with that ICP. And so, you have your ICP, you have where they're at, you have your messaging, and then after that, you just basically work on implementing everything, implementing, testing, and iterating. And so, it's not perfect; it never will be. People are always changing, but in a place to start, you need to put something together as a baseline, so that way you can test against it and you can start qualifying and disqualifying things out. And you have a strategy, and so you're not, when you're thinking, what isn't working here, you have something to go back to and follow kind of the timeline and say, okay, are we reaching people? Yes. Okay, are they clicking on our ads? Are they engaging with our content? No. Okay, well, that seems more like a problem with messaging there, right? So, like I said, you need one to start, mostly as a baseline to show where you're going and how to grow throughout that time.
Yeah, I think qualifying is a very important aspect, but what a lot of people don't touch on, and maybe it's not talked about enough, and James, I want to get your thoughts on this too, is the notion of disqualifying certain people that wouldn't fit with the product that you're putting out. Tell me a little bit more about your thoughts on that.
I think because we're such a huge business to consumer play that almost anyone can really use and buy your product. But the problem is the messaging has to be very specific to a key cohort of people. If your messaging is to everyone in this world, well, there's a high likelihood it's going to also be ignored by everybody because it sounds so generic and doesn't sound anything specific towards them. So, kind of when we talked about this as we created our videos, we wanted to use a lot of disqualifiers. What that basically means is telling people, hey, if this is not for you, don't watch this. Or if you're this kind of person, don't listen to what we have to say. Automatically disqualifying someone is kind of like a little bit intriguing in the sense where it's like, wait, why can't I do something? How come you're telling me no? That usually gets people's attention, and that's kind of what we've at least tried to experiment on. And I think it's really important to just have your messaging correct with your ideal customer profile for those people that you build out. You're going to have to test your narrative, and you're going to have to figure out which channel is the right one to be able to target, and you have to hone down your messaging. Ideally, you can measure all the metrics that go behind it and say, well, we're getting our message through, or maybe we have to tweak something to increase our KPI here and there.
Yeah, I think messaging is the key to resonating with the audience that we're trying to reach right at the end of the day. And filtering
Yeah.
out people that may not be interested also helps because it shows us who would be using our product versus who just sees it as something that they would never use, and that we can continue to tweak
Yeah.
from
Yeah,
there.
it's better to start with a really really small group of people first, and then work your way to another group of similarly situated but small group as well. It's a great one.
Yeah. Let's should we go through our ICPs that we've made? What do you
Yeah, I
guys
think we
think?
have time to. That might be all we have time left for, but I think we should show the difference, or we can at least talk about it in terms of where we're at right now. I know this may not be it may be a little bit confusing to look at, so maybe it's better if we just talk it through.
Yeah, let's
Sure.
just talk it through.
Awesome.
So,
Yeah, so I know we this time around we focused on making sure we split up gender as well as our ICPs. Um, the research that we kind of looked into, we created two different buyer personas now. One was named Jared and one was named Karen. Um, so for Jared, we had them labeled as, again, like an average fintech consumer. We looked at a study based off of a company that is no longer around called Bumped, that showed 25 to 49-year-old age of males were more likely to engage with fintech apps, with fintech services, which is something we feel we fall under the category of. And with this, they have an above average education. So, with that in mind, we broke it down into some of the more common disease states for males: erectile dysfunction, hair loss, ADHD, depression, pain, smoking cessation, GERD, etc., etc. Um, and then from there, started to craft the psychology of the user. And so, again, Jared, average fintech consumer, so interested in personal finance. And then number two, we wanted to say he was less likely to go to the doctor himself, being a man and all. So the idea there is that we start to build a little bit more messaging. What's his main value props? One, we thought for Jared, one of the more important value props is going to be ease of use and convenience. We don't want to introduce any extra steps there. We want it to be as simple as possible. We want it to be touch and go, and just make it as smooth as possible. Two, efficacy. Are we offering a good service compared to alternatives? Are our prices competitive there? Three, is this a good ROI for them? And this is something that I think will be exceptionally important, is showing the growth in terms of what are my rewards actually doing in my account? What's the Bitcoin doing in my wallet right now? Is it growing? How much? Is this even worth it? And so I know we've put a lot of effort, especially into our user portal, to start showing growth of the Bitcoin assets and start showing how much money people are making with their card. And then four, kind of the last thing that we wanted to end it on, was focusing on the outcome. Just as a gender differential in general, males tend to be more focused on the outcome of a purchase, on the outcome of a product. And so we wanted to make sure that we were able to communicate um, a positive experience in terms of one, it's competitive, it's worked, and two, you've earned free money on it. Three, you've had to do absolutely no extra effort versus what you've already been doing. And so those were kind of the value points there that we did for Jared. We came up with some more messaging specifically to put on different parts of our website, but that might be a lot to go through right now. So we can move on over to Karen. James, do you want to discuss the Karen?
Yeah, Karen was quite interesting, but for our Karen, the way I made her our ideal customer was that one, she's female, she's of the ages of 25 to 49 years of age, also slightly above education. And again, we kind of reflected this on a study that showed that who were the types of most likely to use fintech applications. And that was kind of the age range that I sort of fell in. They were also in major metropolitan areas. Some of the medical conditions that Karen would have would be like acne, birth control, GERD, IBS, basically, anything in the stomach related, anxiety, depression, pain, hypertension, and weight loss. So our messaging for them was really more based on, I would say, feelings and emotions. So funny we put a picture here on our whiteboard, but basically it's Karen who's having to wait in line at the CVS pharmacy, and everyone knows waiting in line in the pharmacy is probably one of the most like painful, dreadful experiences you can have on a Sunday. It's the worst. I mean, you're just wasting time there. So we wanted to come up with some messaging that makes Karen feel like they're having fun. They're having a great time waiting in line at the pharmacy. we didn't really want to focus on the negative outcome things, but the positive outcomes for our female ICP or for our female ideal customer profile. So we wanted to sort of tell them this is more about the process, not really the outcome. Here's the positive feeling that you're going to be helping out your family, getting this Bitcoin, which is potentially going to grow to something later in the future. But again, really our message was going to be much more emotionally driven. For most females, they're interested in personal finance, fire. They're interested in investing. They're more than likely to go to the doctor, and more than likely they have money to invest into family than opposed to males.
Yeah, and I think too we talked about, just to go one for one, we talked about Jared being much more focused on the outcome of the product. Here in that same study, it showed that females are more focused on the experience, and so we want to make sure that we communicate a fun, positive, seamless experience for them, especially again when they're going to the pharmacy. And I think Amazon just put out a good commercial about that, but yeah, no one likes to have to wait in line at the pharmacy.
Yeah.
It is dreadful. Waiting an hour to pick up one thing is it's not a fun experience. But if you gotta earn some money while doing it, then why not, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the fun part.
Yeah,
Awesome.
I think narrowing down our, because we had these ideal customer profiles, but then we also decided to step back and take a look at what disease states and things would fit to each one of these customers. I think that helped us narrow down a lot of our content and what we were trying to do. Because it's not just about getting your customer and seeing that, okay, this is somebody that could potentially use it, but then we also have to determine what they're going to use it for, why they're going to use it, and if that's going to bring more people to the site and to be able to use the product. That was something that when we did the first iteration, we didn't really focus on, which helped us get a little bit more granular, right?
Yeah, definitely. And if you guys are excited to hear more, we will continue next podcast here where we can talk more about our Meowdy, our pet prescriptions arm of things now that we just released. We also broke down ICPs for that, as well as next steps for each ICP in the different marketing channels. And we can get a little bit granular to that, just to show you guys what our thought process is behind it.
Yeah, we will continue this discussion on the next pod.
All
Yeah,
right.
go to market's definitely it's a big discussion point. It's something that it took us 2 to 3 weeks to kind of hammer all this out.
Yeah, 2 hours a day, 3 hours a day.
So,
It's good though because it puts us all on the same page.
it does, and it also puts us in a lens that we wouldn't be looking through, because now we're putting ourselves in the shoes of the customer, right, and looking at why we would want to use our product ourselves. So it's a good exercise for all founders and new companies to do. But any other closing thoughts? Nope.
Go Birds. Stay healthy, get wealthy with Meowdy.
Couldn't have said it better.